Just last week, Pinky Moholi, who used to be the chief executive of Telkom and was a non-executive director on the board of Old Mutual, resigned. She issued a statement in which she said she had left the board. The board issued a very nice statement thanking her for her services. No bad blood there. I contacted Pinky Moholi, who then referred me to Old Mutual, and Old Mutual wouldn't comment on why she had resigned. Can you tell me what was in the letter that she would have written to you as the chairman, as a board member, to say, "Dear Mr. Chairman, I hereby tender my resignation"? Did she proffer a reason?
She didn't proffer a reason. In fact, we'd been together on a strategy offsite Monday, Tuesday. By Wednesday evening, she was in conversation, saying that she sought to resign. I had a long telephonic conversation with her about the issue.
Is her resignation connected to Peter Moyo?
It's not narrowly connected to Peter Moyo. I think that there are a series of issues. My own sense of it, though few people admit to it, Pinky did some interviews, and just step back into the issue. When the litigation was launched, it was styled as a battle between two strong-willed individuals, Peter Moyo and Trevor Manuel, which it wasn't, according to the board. And the board then said, instead of Trevor going to the press, various board members would be interviewed. And Pinky was one of those people interviewed. And I thought that her interviews were quite outstanding. My sense is that she was put under a lot of pressure. Social media is cruel. And I think that there was a pent-up fear and anger and a sense of detachment that resulted from that. The other real difficulty is that this battle is now so protracted. Bear in mind that it's just over 3 months since we suspended Peter.
This is the public domain stuff. But
this is the public domain stuff, and Pinky was part of the committee appointed by the board to engage with Peter.
The moment she announced her resignation, Peter Moyo's legal team came out and said, now we're not going to be pursuing any legal charges against Pinky Moholi because she is now, clearly, the implication was she's seen the light. She is no longer on the bad team. She's come over to the good side. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. Whether it smacks of opportunism on the back of her resignation is up to you to comment, I think.
Look, I don't want to comment on it. I have very high regard for Pinky. I think that we collaborated very, very well. In the time that she's been on the board of Old Mutual Limited, she initially chaired the Committee on IT and Digital Platforms, and then she moved in to take responsibility for MCOM.
Is the board holding together, or is this the beginning of a crumbling board in the face of adversity?
I have spoken to board members individually to ask them, and I'm pretty confident about the board holding together. I'm saying just last week we had a 2-day offsite. This week we've had 2 long board calls. Participation is very high. And my own sense is that people have always been free to be pretty expressive in board meetings. So there's no impediments to that. One of the things that's difficult for people, I know, is the sense that suddenly you are now seen to be a delinquent of sorts. You are...
Well, that's the charge. I mean, Peter Moyo's legal team is saying they want the entire board of Old Mutual declared delinquent. They want the entire board to be declared contempt of court. This comes with jail terms and all kinds of other potential sanctions. I mean, should they be able to ever prove a case?
The contempt issue is now before the courts. The delinquency issue, I mean, it's been out there, rah, rah, rah. I think it'll be easier for one person to be charged with delinquency based on conduct than for an entire board. You know, it's not as easy as saying, I think that they are in contempt. There are a series of tests that the judge would have to apply. And, I think that the board and the lawyers are pretty confident because every step of the way, demonstrably, there was legal advice for what we did. And if the legal advice is found to be wrong, it cannot suggest that the board has been acting in contempt.
Take me through the comments about the robes. Massive controversy. Of course, you talked about social media and how cruel social media can be. You were at a press conference. You were pushed on points of law, and you made a comment, roughly, and you'll forgive me for getting the exact wording wrong, but how can somebody, just because they wear a set of robes, be in charge of governance within the company structure? Roughly, I mean, I'm summarizing.
The one issue is that the construct of the Companies Act is that directors are elected by shareholders to take responsibility for the company. Part of what directors do is to delegate responsibility to executives. Old Mutual is no different. We had our annual general meeting on the 24th of May. Directors were elected. The mandate is abundantly clear. The ability to appoint a chief executive has the flip side, which is also the ability to dismiss a chief executive. The judge said that you dismissed Peter in terms of this clause of his employment contract, but if you use this clause, you needed to follow a disciplinary process. If you'd used the other clause, then you could just have dismissed him on notice. Now, two parts to it. The one is that I've not encountered any situation in South Africa where a chief executive is put through a disciplinary process. I think the issues of trust at that level of an organization are paramount. So we would say that that's a dispute in law between the way in which we've seen matters and the way in which Judge Mashila has seen matters. So that's on the first notice of June. But because that's the way in which the judge had seen this matter, the legal advice we got was that if, on the other hand, you then use the other section, it's 24 and 25, you could then issue a fresh notice and say, now, in terms of this section, bye-bye.
Which you've done, which now he's been given the right to use as evidence that Old Mutual is in contempt of court.
Well, that's
refusing to reinstate.
These are the matters of dispute. Now, I'm saying that that's the best of our ability. The board applied its mind. It wasn't just led by the nose by a few lawyers. It applied its mind, took advice, it debated the issues, arrived at conclusions. Those conclusions are arrived at in the context of the fiduciary responsibilities of the board. You know, we have the short-term interest, and the short-term measure would be the share price, but we have the long-term interest. It's managing the expectations and needs of all of our stakeholders.
Is that being done in this process? I mean, right now, board calls, lots of meetings happening, lots of discussion. The focus is all about Peter Moyo.
The company is running. Results haven't been stellar, but they're there and strong. And part of those results are, of course, from a slightly earlier period. But it hasn't been a happy time for the bulk of the financial services sector. It's a difficult time, and so all of these matters need to be considered. But notwithstanding that, I think the company still runs, work still gets performed. The disruption, like Peter's arrival, would be passing interest to staff, but the work continues.
Is it not undermining confidence in this?
Look, that may be the objective, but this is a large business, and the bulk of the work to grow the business actually happens with a widely distributed sales force.
It doesn't help.
It doesn't help because I mean, we want this thing to end. This protracted battle can't be in anybody's interest.
Is it a 100 million rand problem? Is it a 200 million rand problem?
We don't know. We're in a bit of a cleft stick. We've got large shareholders saying to us, corporate governance has to trump money now. We expect the board to act in fiduciary interests of all of us. This is a battle which you have to win. That's what some of our shareholders are saying to us. On the other hand, there are people who would say, why do you reward bad behavior with more money? You're setting a bad precedent for all of corporate South Africa. The big challenge is that this is not a message being heard. People can talk about this court case and Peter's arrival here and there and what his lawyers said, but they don't go back to the original scene of the crime, which was the non-payment of preferential dividends.
You call it a scene of the crime. Is that a euphemism?
I think it's a euphemism.
I'm just checking that it's a euphemism. Talking to Trevor Manuel, chairman of Old Mutual. More with him in just a moment. Political adversaries. Is there politics involved in this thing? Of course, after Peter Moyo fired his first set of lawyers, who did he engage but one Dahlia Mpofu once, a former senior ANC member, who then shifted sides and went off to the EFF. Trevor Manuel, of course, a former finance minister of South Africa and a senior member of the African National Congress. Is there a bit of that at play, one wonders? In a moment.